One piece of smart technology could help solve a murder mystery in Arkansas.
2 Pine Bluff teens are in jail tonight facing murder charges. Police say they are in custody in connection to the shooting death of 2 17-year-olds.
It was a bizarre story in Russellville, Arkansas today. A man who reportedly quit his job over low pay went on a shooting spree with 2 handguns.
Tributes are pouring in for Ann Presley. The Little Rock TV anchorwoman died over the weekend.
A suspect in the deadly Fayetteville shooting on New Year's Day in court this morning.
A Little Rock mother is pleading for help tonight. She is asking anyone.
Thanks for listening to Strictly Homicide, an Arkansas true crime podcast covering lesser-known cases out of the natural state. I'd like to start off by thanking my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to help support us, you can find us on Patreon and help with as little as $1 a month. There's also a donate button for a one-time donation on strictlyhomicide.com. Please stay tuned until the end of the show to hear a few promos from some of my favorite shows. Warning: Strictly Homicide covers cases that include sexual assault, violence, and homicide. Episodes may contain explicit language and are not suitable for young ears. Listener discretion is advised. Hey y'all, thanks for downloading episode 28 of Strictly Homicide Podcast. I am your host, Nikki T, and on this episode, we will be discussing the heartbreaking case of Sidney Nicole Randall, which took place in Walnut Ridge, Arkansas in 2013. I want to thank everyone for sticking with me, even though I have been MIA. My workload for my other 2 jobs just got way too insane. I had to step back a little. I am still pretty new to this hosting thing, and every day I'm learning more and more. Next year, I will remember what the fall looks like and plan better. Strictly Homicide is a one-woman show. Not only am I the host, I research, write, record, and edit on my own. But for 2020, I've made personal goals, and one of them is to be more organized and release my episodes steadily. Now on to our housekeeping. Huge shout out to Brandy and Douglas with the Dead Body Show for being our most recent patron. If you would like to help support the show too, like Brandy and Douglas, head over to patreon.com/strictlyhomicide. You'll be able to pledge as little as $1 a month. And this July, I will be in Kansas City along with Brandy and Douglas at the True Crime Podcast Festival. There are going to be some of the best true crime podcasts at this event, so make sure to check it out. And especially come by and say what's up to me and that Dead Body Show. Another way to help us out is subscribing to the show, leaving us a 5-star review, and telling your friends about the show. iTunes user Dean3241976 left us a 5-star review and said, Nikki T is a great storyteller. I like episode 15 because she gets a little personal, and I feel like I got to know about the person behind the voice. She seems to be a good person who really does care about Arkansas, and she tells little-known stories that need to be told. I highly recommend this podcast. Thank you so much, Dean. Walnut Ridge is a tiny town with a population of only 5,388. It is located in northeast Arkansas in Lawrence County. You can get to Memphis in about an hour-and-a-half drive or to Little Rock in 2 hours. Walnut Ridge is a little over 16 square feet and was established in 1875. This was when it was known as the Old Walnut Ridge Settlement and used mainly for, you guessed it, the railroad. Walnut Ridge takes a lot of pride in its agriculture. CityofWalnutRidge.com describes the town as a charming farming community with affordable housing, friendly people, and a great public education system. William Baptist University is located in Walnut Ridge, and Arkansas State University Jonesboro is nearby, along with the Black River Technical College in Pocahontas. The median household income in Walnut Ridge is around $41,000, with a median home price of $92,000. The median rent averages around $600, with a cost of living index of 78.4, which is much lower than the U.S. average of 100. 19% of the residents in Walnut Ridge are living under the federal poverty level. Walnut Ridge is located in the Mississippi Delta Flyway, which is known as the major waterfowl flyway in the U.S. If you're like me, and this means absolutely nothing to you, don't worry, I Googled it. Thanks to ducks.org, because I have never hunted in my life and had no clue what any of this meant. So the waterfowl flyway is a system that has been used for almost 70 years. It helps control the management of waterfowl harvesting while conserving the bird's habitat. There are 4 flyways recognized by the U.S. Fish and Game: Atlantic, Mississippi, Central, and Pacific. The system provides a way to effectively manage the harvesting regulations, which they base on waterfowl populations, harvests, and the number of hunters in each of these 4 regions. Each of the flyways are unique in its geography, hunter numbers, harvests, hunting culture, and waterfowl habitat. The birds are banded with a colored band. Pacific is orange, Central is blue, Mississippi is gray, and Atlantic is green. When hunters harvest one of these birds, they are to report it. This is how they are able to effectively manage harvest regulations. The Mississippi Flyway includes 14 states. Nearly half of the nation's waterfowl hunters live in one of these 14 states. The Mississippi Flyway is 40 to 50% of the U.S. duck harvest and 30 to 40% of the U.S. goose harvest. If you would like more information, I'd like to point you to ducks.org. Walnut Ridge has some pretty interesting history behind it, especially when it comes to rock and roll. The Rock and Roll Highway 67 runs right through the town. It was named this in 2009 for the musicians who would play alongside the highway in the 1950s. The musicians just happened to be the very well-known Arkansan Johnny Cash, along with Elvis Presley, Billy Lee Riley, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Roy Orbison. This is not the only rock and roll history Walnut Ridge has. In fact, the next story was so fun to read about, and I'm pretty excited to share the story with those who aren't familiar with the town. Would you believe me if I told you that rock and roll legends, the Beatles, are connected to Walnut Ridge? I can imagine y'all are like, what in the world did the Beatles have to do with this tiny town in Arkansas? While they were on tour in 1964, the guys wanted to take a small break and find a quiet, secluded location to get in some rest and relaxation. It turns out that the guy who operated the charter airline that they flew on owned a dude ranch near Alton, Missouri. So he offered them the dude ranch for the weekend. They decided to take him up on this offer, but they had to change planes before getting to the location, and they wanted a small, quiet airport with no crowds. The airport also had to have a large runway to change flights at. The charter plane operator suggested that they use a small airport located in Walnut Ridge, Arkansas. They planned to fly into Walnut Ridge after their Dallas show, change planes, then fly to the ranch. On September 18, 1964, as they began to land in Walnut Ridge, the airplane caught the attention of some bored teenagers who headed to the airport to check it out. They had no idea what they were about to find out.
About an hour later, they they come flying back in here, and I was about ready to close, and they said, "You're not going to believe. Jack, you're not going to believe this." I said, "What?" "That was the Beatles." And I said, "No, boys, don't come back in here and start rumors like that." I said, "There ain't nobody going to believe that." Swear, it was the Beatles. They had been in Dallas and was on the way to New York on the 3 days of R&R. And I said, "Now, boys, I don't believe that." They said, "It's true, Jack." They said when the Beatles got off, they was practicing quick draw and, having a good time. And they talked to all of them. But now, if there'd have been a crowd there, they wouldn't have.
Well, you can only imagine how fast the word started to spread in this little tiny town. So on Sunday, when the band returned, they were greeted by hundreds of eager fans. Not the peaceful changing of planes that they planned. They were very nice, and a few fans got to shake their hands, and some received autographs as they walked through the crowds.
A major bullet point in the history of Walnut Ridge is they have the distinction of being the only place in Arkansas visited by the Beatles.
If you're looking for an interesting trip to take and happen to visit the town, make sure to head to Beatles Park located at 110 Abbey Road. This was formerly 110 Southwest 2nd Street. At the park, you can see a life-size sculpture of the Beatles as they appear on the Abbey Road album. The life-size sculpture has more than 30 hidden references to the Beatles songs and album. I read on BeatlesAtTheRidge.com that, quote, "As lighting changes throughout the day, the hidden details in the sculpture reveal themselves to the observer. And at night, under the powerful lighting, the scene takes on a surreal quality, and more secrets can be seen." End quote. Not far from the Beatles Park is Guitar Walk, a tribute to 9 rock and roll legends who performed along the Rock and Roll Highway 67. This just isn't any normal tribute. It's pretty unique. Guitar Walk happens to be a large pathway that you walk along with information and earphones, so you can listen to stories and music and read about the legends. Yes, the pathway tells you the stories, like your grandfather used to. This pathway is about 115 feet long and 40 feet wide. And the best part, the pathway is in the shape of a huge Epiphone casino, which was modeled after the very guitar that Lennon played. I will try and remember to post some pictures of this place. Every year in September, which is the month the Beatles flew in, Walnut Ridge hosts Beatles at the Ridge Festival. The website describes Beatles at the Ridge as a music festival with many different attractions. They have a wings cook-off, a car show, many vendors, and an octopus garden for kids, which isn't an actual octopus, and it doesn't have any. It's just a kiddie area with rides and jump houses. Please take a moment to hear a word from our sponsors. The crime rate in Walnut Ridge is 2.57 per 1,000 residents, which is much lower than the state of Arkansas and much lower than the national crimes rate. The town didn't have murders or numerous missing children. The town was quiet, and that's what the residents were used to. So you can only imagine the shock of the community when they discovered a well-known and loved 14-year-old girl was missing. As the days went on and Sidney Nicole Randall was nowhere to be found, the situation just got more and more bizarre. And in the end, not all questions will be answered, and a community will never be the same. While all questions might not be answered, and folks may never know all the details, one thing we do know is that DNA evidence can sometimes paint a very ugly picture. In January 1998, California banned smoking in all bars and restaurants. The Denver Broncos would become the first AFC team in 14 years to win the Super Bowl, defeating Green Bay by 8 points, and an abortion clinic in Birmingham, Alabama is bombed. killing one and severely wounding others. In February, voters in Maine repeal a gay rights law that was passed in 1997. On March 23, 1998, the 70th Annual Academy Awards is hosted by Billy Crystal, and the awful, terrible movie that it is, sorry guys, Titanic, took home 11 Oscars. During that same month, in Arkansas, teenagers Mitchell Johnson and Andrew Gold would open fire on classmates during a fire drill in Jonesboro, not far from Walnut Ridge. In April, Citicorp and Travelers Group would announce their merge, creating Citigroup. And an F5 tornado will hit western Alabama, killing 32 people. In May 1998, the United States Department of Justice, along with 20 U.S. states, file an antitrust case against Microsoft. In May, Saturday Night Live star Phil Hartman is murdered by his wife in his home, right before she killed herself. In June 1998, the GM parts factory in Flint, Michigan, will go on strike with 5 other assembly plants following within 7 weeks. And the great Michael Jordan played his last game with the Chicago Bulls, helping them win their 6th NBA title in 8 years.
Jordan, open, Chicago with the lead! If that's the last image of Michael Jordan, how magnificent is it?
Beating the Utah Jazz by 1 point.
The Chicago Bulls have won their 6th NBA championship, and it's their 2nd three-peat.
And on July 15, 1998, a beautiful girl was born in Jonesboro, Arkansas, to Victor and Denise. They named her Sidney Nicole Randall. Sidney's big brother Ben was 3 years older, but very excited for her to join the family. Although the relationship between Victor and Denise would not last, she would find love again with a man named John, and they would welcome their child, Zach, into the world in 2001. Soon after that, John and Denise would marry. Ben and Sidney still had a relationship with their father, Victor, and would visit him, even though they lived with Denise and John full-time. Denise had developed some health issues over the years, including being diagnosed with cancer, which she would eventually beat, and having major back issues ending with her undergoing back surgery. Due to the health issues Denise suffered from, she was deemed disabled, and John was the breadwinner. He worked as a farmhand in Clover Bend. This was just one of the things that allowed John to feel like he was in complete control over Denise and the children. Denise described John as a selfish person. He drank a lot and did not want anyone interrupting his drinking time. Denise started to notice the marriage falling apart and getting worse and worse by the day. Due to Denise's back issues, she said that their sex life did not exist anymore. It would cause her so much pain, and it was something that she no longer wanted to do. John would get very rough with her, knowing she was in pain. I was about to start the next sentence with one of the last times that she remembers them having sex, because that's how she said it in the article, but I quickly realized I cannot word it that way, because this was not just sex. John physically forced her to have sex with him. She did not have a choice. He threw Denise, who is tiny, maybe weighing 100 pounds, down on the bed and raped her. He placed his hand around her neck and began strangling her. John got pleasure out of hurting Denise. Denise's back pain just got worse and worse. She would have to spend her days in bed sometimes, medicating with what she could, and pain medication is known to knock people on their ass. Eventually, she would undergo back surgery, but this would put her even more out of commission. I had double back surgery, back to back, 20 days apart, and I couldn't even walk or sit on the toilet to pee by myself. I can't imagine John actually taking care of Denise. Often, during times like these, life can just get away from you. Please take a short moment to hear another word from our sponsors. Sidney had always been such a bright and happy child. She was well known throughout the community and very well liked. She stayed busy. She played softball and participated in the Girl Scouts, all while competing in pageants. Sidney grew into such a beautiful young lady inside and out. She had this bubbly personality with a constant smile on her face. She continued to stay active throughout her school years. She played sports and competed in pageants, which was her all-time favorite thing. She was a beauty queen. She was competing since the age of 2, and during her 7th and 8th grade year, she would be crowned Miss Bobcat, and I assume that is a huge deal. Sidney's popularity continued to follow her all the way into middle school. She was on the flag line team, the dance team, band, and the volleyball team, all while continuing to kill it in the pageantry world. Sidney Nicole was just so vibrant and full of life. John and Sidney weren't that close while she was growing up. He would spend most of his time with Zach, and often Ben, but never spent much time with Sidney. That started to change around 2012. He started to take Sidney with him hunting instead of the boys. He became very protective of her and would not allow her to do much. She was not allowed to stay overnight at a friend's house or even have a boyfriend. If he found out that she was talking to a boy, he would take her phone and ground her. He would ground her over the weirdest stuff. Every night he would go into her room and shut the door. Denise said he would stay in there for 30 to 40 minutes, but she didn't think anything of it. He was just being a stepdad, helping his child. After a while, Denise started to feel like John was spending too much time with her. She told him that he really needed to start spending time with Ben because he had enlisted in the Marines and he was about to leave for boot camp. After a while, Denise started to feel like John was spending too much time with her. She told him that he really needed to start spending time with Ben because he had enlisted in the Marines and he was about to leave for boot camp. John completely ignored the request and continued on with how he was living his life. Later, Denise will come out in an interview and say that she suspected that John may have been molesting Sidney, but that she wasn't sure. Sidney's father, Victor, and his live-in partner also later said that they suspected that John was molesting Sidney. Victor was quoted saying, "She said she was going to tell." During this time, Sidney's personality started to change. Sure, she's a teenager and her hormones are going crazy, but the girl who always had a glowing smile on her face started to become distant. She told her friends that she was scared of John. She said that he was mean to her and he hit her once. Her father, Victor, and her brother, Ben, both said that Sidney was afraid of John. Around February, John went into H&R Block and filed his 2012 taxes. This was something that Denise used to handle but couldn't. He didn't tell her about it either. And on the 8th of February, he received a refund of almost $7,000. And by the end of February, almost all but a few dollars was gone. He went on a shopping spree, mainly for himself. He spent almost $1,000 at an outdoorsman store, purchasing a gun. He bought Sidney a very expensive pageant dress, something he has never done in the past. He bought nearly $1,500 in electronics at Best Buy, including a laptop for himself and for Sidney. Ben was pissed. He said that he'd been asking his parents for a computer for a long time, so he wasn't very happy when he found out that John purchased 2, but none were for him. On Saturday, March 9th, 2013, Denise, John, Zach, and Sidney were outside doing yard work. Denise would describe it as any normal day. Ben was in Jonesboro for most of the day training for the Marines. John ran a few errands, each time taking Sidney with him. These were confirmed with videos and receipts. They brought home lunch after picking it up from McDonald's around 11 a.m. Ben returned home around 2 p.m. and started to help the family finish up the yard work. When they were finished, Ben went for a run at the park. John went inside and took a nap, while the other 3 showered and prepared for the night. When Ben returned home around 6 p.m., his friend Cody was with him. He asked if his friend could stay the night, and this apparently pissed John off, because he was quoted saying, "I guess that puts a cramp in my plans. I was planning on drinking tonight." They all finished eating supper around 8:30. Denise, John, Sidney, and Zach watched TV while Ben and Cody hung out in his room. Denise went to bed around 10 p.m. She said she took a Xanax to help her sleep. She said Sidney was in the kitchen getting something to drink, and John and Zach were in the living room watching TV. John usually stays up later than Denise watching TV and drinking. When she goes to bed, she leaves the small lamp on, and when he gets in bed, he turns it off. Around 4 or 5 a.m., Denise woke up because the light was still on. She reached over to John's side to find it empty. She figured that John fell asleep in the living room, so she went in there to wake him up, only to find Zach asleep on the couch, but no John. She was a bit foggy because of the Xanax she took, but she looked around and noticed that John's phone and wallet were on the table. She looked outside to see if his truck was there, but it was gone. She could not figure out what was going on, so she started checking the kids' rooms. First, Ben and Cody. They were in there asleep, and then she checked Sidney's room. When she walked in, the room was empty. This was the point when she started to worry. She woke the boys up and asked them if they knew where John or Sidney were. She thought maybe Sidney went to a friend's house and John found out and went and looked for her. Denise started calling around to all of Sidney's friends. They all told her that she was not there and they hadn't seen her. At this point, Denise calls 911.
Yes, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and my daughter and my husband is gone. And I was wondering if there was a car accident, or if you could help me in any way.
Okay, I haven't heard of any. Is your number 637?
Yes.
Okay, what's your name?
It's Denise Cornell.
Okay, I'm going to have to call you back just 1 minute, okay? Okay.
Thank you.
Denise was then contacted, and a police officer was sent to her home. She stepped outside to look around and wait for the officer. A few minutes later, John pulls up in his truck, alone. He looks at Denise confused and asks her what in the hell she was doing outside at 5 a.m. Denise told him that she had to call the police and that she was waiting for them because Sidney was missing. John looks at Denise and says, "That's bullshit," and starts to back up. She yells, "Where are you going?" He tells her that he's going straight to the police station to report Sidney missing. Why wouldn't he just wait for the police officer that was already on his way? She said, "I already called the police and they are on their way." Just a few minutes later, the police officer arrives at the Cornell home. It's about 5:26 a.m. Denise went over the timeline of the last 24 hours all the way up to when John backed out of the driveway. The police officer checked with the department, and they said that nobody has came in and made any kind of report. The officer takes Denise's statement, and the police ask if she thought that Sidney was in danger. She told the officer that it seems like she ran off with her stepdad, and if that was the case, she's not in danger. So Sidney's situation doesn't fit the criteria for an Amber Alert. Later that day, the police department receives a call.
Lawrence County Communications.
Hi, yes. I reported a missing teenager this morning, and I have an update that where she might possibly be and who she might possibly be with. Could I talk to an officer, please?
Okay, hold on. Where are they missing from?
Walnut Ridge. I talked to a Tony.
Uh-huh.
He was the one that took the report.
Okay, hold on.
John.
This is where the recording cuts off, and no other recording was in the file. It's very strange that they included a couple recordings, and a lot of them were cut off, and they didn't include the second part. But I did receive all of the investigators' notes and case, so I just have to retell it to you. Denise tells the officer that when he took her statement, she told him that she did not think John would hurt Sidney. But now that she thought about it, she's changed her mind. She thinks that they may be together and that she is in fear of Sidney's safety. She told the police officer that John has abused her before in the past and that she is afraid he will hurt Sidney. In the investigator's notes, he wrote, quote, "We discussed that the rest of the family did not think John would hurt Sidney," end quote. I'm not totally sure what they meant by that, but it was in the investigator's note. I would like to think that they would believe the mother and look further into what she's reported. By this time, the community was already helping in the search for Sidney. Friends, family, and strangers came to Walnut Ridge to help search for Sidney throughout the day. Not even 24 hours later, a rock hunter from Walnut Ridge will stumble upon a gruesome discovery. Tommy went rock hunting around 1 a.m. that morning. He stuck around his first location for a few hours before leaving and heading to a new location. He drove out to Walnut Ridge Road and continued past where the pavement ended. After he crossed the first creek, he made a right turn. As he made this turn, he noticed headlights shining to his left. He turned around back onto Walnut Ridge Road, traveling a short distance to the next creek. He traveled north where he saw the headlights again on the side of a ditch. He grew closer, and the lights turned off. He said when he passed by the truck, it was around 4:30 a.m. He didn't see anyone around the truck, but noticed it was a red Ford pickup. It appeared to be parked there, facing the south. As he drove off, he said he noticed a flashlight shining on his truck, coming from the same area where he saw the red truck. Not knowing what was going on, he drove off. Later that day, he saw the news that the police were looking for a red Ford pickup truck. It fit the description of the truck that he saw, so he decided to call it in and report the situation. The police arrived at the location approximately 4 miles down Old Walnut Ridge Road. They located the red Ford pickup truck. Not long after, they located the body of John Cornell. He was lying face down in blue nylon basketball shorts, a gray t-shirt, brown work boots with no socks and no underwear. He had a pack of Pall Malls in his pocket along with a lighter. And about 5 feet west of John was a brown ball cap with a pair of sunglasses inside. It looked like they were placed there. Next to John lay a Remington semi-automatic handgun. The hammer was pulled back on the weapon, and it was loaded with Winchester .45 auto hollow point ammunition. The gun had 1 round in its chamber and 4 rounds in the magazine. Evidence pointed to suicide. He had a self-inflicted gunshot wound to his head. At this point, they activated an Amber Alert because it was obvious that Sidney was in danger. Please take a moment to hear a word from our sponsors.
For a third night, friends and family continue to search for a missing 14-year-old girl.
Brittany Johnson joining us now with the very latest in this story that she has been covering for some time. She is live in Walnut Ridge tonight. Any news, Brittany?
So far, no news, no clues from the crews that are still on the ground searching for this 14-year-old. We're told that they will continue to search throughout the night. And there's one person who wishes she could be out there helping them, and that's Sidney Randall's mother. But she's following authorities' instructions to stay at home and wait.
It's very hard to stay without help. Because when your baby girl is out there missing.
Denise Cornell has been waiting by the phone for days.
The best thing that I can do is to be home answering the phone in case she calls.
The last time she saw her daughter, Sidney, it was Saturday night.
We are praying for her to come home. Her friends are waiting for her to come home.
Crews are picking apart county maps, zeroing in on farms, creek beds, every place they think there is a chance Sidney may be. They started with an area off County Road 438 where her stepfather, John Cornell, was found shot to death from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound.
We're not going to give up until we find Sidney.
Turning up nothing, they're now moving further out toward county lines. Anxiously waiting inside, the only line Denise Cornell is focused on is her phone's, jumping at every ring, hoping it's the one.
We're waiting for that call that says that they have found her.
Sidney Randall's brothers actually skipped school today to join in the search for their sister. The family and law enforcement say they're not going to give up until they find her. Again, crews are out here looking throughout the county tonight, and we're told that more volunteers are expected to join them in the morning.
The following day, the police visit the Cornell residence to do a search of the home. Denise gave them verbal consent to perform the search. First, they went into Sidney's room, where they took into evidence a set of Sidney's bed sheets. Denise explained that her mother was sick in the hospital, and on March 2nd, she went to stay with her mother. Upon return, Denise found that the sheets had been removed from the bed. This was not normal. She was the only person who did the laundry. They hadn't been washed yet, and she definitely thought the situation was weird, but didn't ask or do anything. They also took in 2 cell phones and 2 handwritten notes that they found in Sidney's room. From the home, they also removed all of the computers and laptops. They received names and numbers of all of Sidney's friends from her mother. The police questioned 4 of Sidney's closest friends: Kimber, Lindsay, Alyssa, and Kimberly. I received 2 of the interviews and will play them for you now.
My name is Alan Earnhardt. I'm a special agent with the Arkansas State Police. Today's date is March the 12th, 2013. The time is 11:15 a.m. I'm at the Walnut Ridge Middle School to conduct an interview with Alyssa Jones. Alyssa, tell me again your date of birth.
5/1999.
Okay, all right. And we talked a minute ago, and you already know we're here to talk about your friend,
Yes.
Sidney. Okay. All right. How long have you known Sidney?
I've gone to school with her for 9 years. Me and her haven't really gotten close until this year. We got closer last year, but this year we've gotten really close.
And we're talking about school year or
Yes.
since January?
Yes.
Talking about school year,
Yeah.
August, September, whenever you started?
Yeah, I had band with her, and we had band practices this summer, and me and her, we got close then.
Okay. Does she have any boyfriends?
No, she didn't really mess with any of that I knew of.
Okay. She have a good home life?
I heard her mention a couple of times that she did not like her stepdad. I never heard anything that just stood out to me about it. She didn't talk about it a lot, but, she never really, I wouldn't bring it up around her because I didn't, want to just come up and ask if anything was wrong with her, but she never would just come right out and tell me anything about it.
Did you feel like something was wrong?
No, not really. I knew that her mom had been sick, but that's it.
Okay. Your close friends, you confide stuff in them. I confide in my close friends, that my distant friends, I don't. You understand that. And, I've said, man, don't tell anybody this, but I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
Y'all have been in the same situation?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's just human nature to be that way, and I try to abide by the unwritten rule. This is a case where we can't go by the rule because we've got a person that we need to locate lost, and you understand that.
Yes.
And I mean, if what I'm wanting to know is she told you anything that's ever went on, but she didn't like her stepdad. You told me that. Anything at all that's went on between the two of them?
No, she never said anything like that.
Anything sexually?
No. I've had other people tell me that she told them that, but she never told me that.
When did these people tell you this?
They came in and told me today that they told, I think, one of the counselors that he had been
molesting her?
Yes.
Is that the word you want to? And to clarify that would be rape.
Yes.
Who was that student?
Kimber Yarborough,
Okay.
Courtney Winston, and Mallory Moore told me that they told the counselor.
Kimberly Yarborough and Courtney
Winston. I don't think Sidney told Courtney. I think that Kimber told Courtney about it, and Courtney decided to tell.
Okay.
Now, I know she told Mallory about it.
Okay.
And I know she told Kimber.
Okay. All right. Before today, did you have any idea that he was molesting her?
I had thought maybe he has after everything that's been going on.
Like what's been going on?
Like, just with everything that I've been hearing.
That you've been hearing, or that Sidney actually told you?
That I've been hearing.
Did you go to her house and hang out with her?
No. My mom she doesn't let me, she very rarely lets me go to people's houses.
Did Sidney ever come over to your place?
No.
Did you ever hang out uptown or anything?
No.
So you're close with her, I understand that, but your relationship is all school related?
Yes.
Mainly through the band? Did y'all have some other classes together?
We had every class before lunch together.
Okay.
The past 9 weeks. Yeah, the last semester.
Okay. But Sidney just wasn't the type to talk about her personal life that much.
Mm-mm.
Had Cindy ever told you about going on drives with the family or with the stepdad?
She told me that he took her to Batesville to get her dressed for the pageant that's coming up. And when she told me, she showed me the receipt, and she acted like she was kind of surprised that he spent $600 on a dress for her.
Okay. Did she say her mother went with them too or anything?
No, my mom, she's really into the pageant stuff, and she's really good friends with the owner of the dress shop.
Right.
And she called my mom asking if she knew the people, and my mom told her yeah, and she told her that when they were in there, that it was just weird the way he was involved with her and everything. She said that it's not unusual for dads to come in there buying dresses for their daughters, but they usually just sit off in the corner. She said he was just weirdly involved with her.
Alyssa, can you think of anything else? Any place that you might think she could be or anything like that?
I honestly don't know.
Did you talk with her on the phone?
Occasionally, but not any time recently.
Do you know if she had a phone recently?
Not that I can think of, no.
Facebook her or email or anything?
I didn't really message her on Facebook either.
Okay.
Me and her really were mainly school friends.
Sure. Okay. Alyssa, I'm going to let you get out of here and get back to class.
Okay.
It's 11:25 a.m. and I'm going to end the interview now, okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
From the detective's notes, when he interviewed Kimber, she said that Sidney was dating an older guy, but she didn't know his name or any information about him. She said that Sidney told her that she didn't like her stepdad and was afraid of him because he attempted to rape her. Kimber said that she told her this right before the pageant on February 9th. Sidney didn't tell her much about it, so she didn't know when or where it happened, or any of the details.
My name's Alan Earnhardt. I'm a special agent for the Arkansas State Police. Today's date is March the 12th, 2013. The time is approximately 10:10 a.m. I'm at the Walnut Ridge Middle School to conduct an interview with Kimberly Milgram. Okay. All right, Kimberly, what's your date of birth?
September 4th, 1998.
Okay. And you told me that you was best friends with Sidney.
Yeah.
Let me call you back. How long have y'all been best friends?
3 years.
3 years? Okay.
We've known each other ever since we were little, but we became best friends when, just like 5th grade, when we started hanging out again.
Okay, so the last 3 years y'all been best friends. Do you hang out at school together? Do you have the same classes?
Yeah, we have all the same classes but 2.
Okay. Do y'all Facebook each other?
Mhm.
Okay, how long have you been Facebooking?
Ever since I've had one, since like 2007.
2007. Okay. All right. What about telephone? Y'all talk on the phone?
Mhm. Every chance, pretty much when we need to tell each other something, we call each other if we're not at school.
All right. You know the last time you talked on the phone with her?
Saturday around 6.
Did you call her?
I called the home phone.
Okay.
And I saw her Saturday morning.
So you talked with her on the phone around 6 p.m. in the afternoon?
Mhm.
And you saw her that morning?
Yeah, I drove over to her house.
Did you hang out there or what?
I was in the car and we were talking, and then my mom called to tell me to come home.
You get to drive over there?
Mhm.
That's all right. Okay. Did she call and tell you to come over, or
I surprised her.
you surprised her?
I usually do that when she's grounded.
Was she grounded?
Mhm.
What in the world did she do to get grounded?
Her stepdad said that she wasn't spending enough time with the family, and so he took her privilege away.
When did he do this?
Back in December.
She's been grounded since December? Are you serious?
Mhm. And she had just got ungrounded when he grounded her again, and the time before that it was July when he grounded her.
All right, when she's grounded, what privileges does she have?
Pretty much to come to school and back. They usually let her go with me to my dad's or to stay the night, and that's about pretty much anything. Like all that she gets to do.
Do you get to hang out with her any on weekends or anything?
Yeah.
When she's grounded, you do?
I have to go over there, but.
You hang out with her at her house, in her room, or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that where you go in her room?
Yeah. Or we hang out with her mom and all of them.
Yeah. Okay. And you know, this is real important because we're trying to find her.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully she's going to be okay, but we don't know that. You know, that's why we need to find her really quickly. And we're trying to get all the information we can get. So I'm not from here, so I don't know anybody. And when somebody comes in, you know, and says they're the best friend, that's who I want to talk to because you know things, y'all talk. You know, I talk to my best friend and tell him, I don't know if you'd call it secrets or whatever, but, you know, some of it might be secrets. Some of it, you know, might be just between me and him. But, you know, at this point, as serious as it is, you know, that's really what I want to talk to you. And I was going to ask you, what about Sidney's boyfriend?
Like, at the time of her birthday in July,
Yes.
we were all over there. Me, Chantel, and a girl named Kaylin were there. We were talking to a guy named Joseph, and she ended up dating him for like maybe 2 days.
Joseph?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know him. I didn't want to know him.
Does he go to school here?
No, he goes to Jonesboro somewhere.
Okay.
And, like, she'll have crushes, but she's never really actually had a real boyfriend. And, like, she'll talk to him and say she's in a relationship with him and stuff like that on Facebook, but they never really meet.
You think she's just kind of saying it, but it's not really happening? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So this was last July when she went out with a guy named Joseph a couple of times, and he's from Jonesboro. How did he get up here? Did he drive? Is he older?
Like, they never met. We were supposed to go to the mall the very next day after on her birthday, and I ended up not going, and they were supposed to meet up with him, and they never did.
So did she meet him on Facebook or something? Okay, but she hadn't actually met him face to face.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Okay.
All right. And that's about the same time you said she was grounded by her stepdad.
Like, it was 3 days later she got grounded.
Why do you think she got grounded, did she tell you? You don't have any...
He grounds her for random reasons, and sometimes...
Tell me about those.
Like, he'll ground her for spending too much time in her bedroom, or not spending enough time with family when all she does is she's at home. She's not allowed to go anywhere. And if she gets ungrounded, she doesn't get none of her stuff back, so she's grounded all of the time.
How long has this been going on? But as far as getting grounded, is it?
It's been as long as we've been friends.
Okay. For the past 3 years, she's
Yeah.
been getting grounded, and it's always by her stepdad.
Yeah. She'll get in trouble by her mom, but her stepdad will ground her.
Okay. Has she talked about her stepdad to you?
Yeah, she says that he's mean to her. She don't like him, and she thinks he don't like her.
Okay. What does she mean by being mean to her?
Like talking hateful towards her, or like they'll play fight, like, you know, wrestle, but I think he takes it a little bit too far.
He wrestles with her?
Yeah.
She's not very big, is she?
No, she's scrawny.
Okay. All right. What do you mean by taking the wrestling too far?
Like, there's a certain point, like, yeah, play wrestling, that he goes to, like, another step and actually goes into tumbling her and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a little bit too far.
Have you seen it, or she just told you?
I've seen some of it.
You've seen some of it? Good. And this is kind of hard to talk about too, has she ever said anything about her stepdad and him mistreating her sexually?
She has told me that she wakes up during the night and probably around 2, and he'll just be sitting there over watching her. And that's as far as she told me. I don't know what she's told anybody else.
Yeah. Do you think she's holding back something?
Because she always has a terrified look in her face when she talks about it.
Okay.
And she shouldn't have that look.
Okay. But when she told you that, you think she was wanting to say more and just didn't have the courage or was embarrassed or something?
Yeah.
Is that your true feeling? Would you think she confided in anybody else, some of her other best friends? Who do you think she might have confided in?
Last night at the ceremony we had for her, there was a girl named Kimberly Yarborough.
Kimberly Yarborough?
Yeah, I don't know how you spell her name.
Okay.
And we were talking, and she said, I wish I would have told somebody what she told me.
Where's she from, Kimberly Yarborough?
I think she's from Walnut Ridge.
She goes to school here?
Mhm.
In this school?
Mhm.
She in your grade?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you friends with her?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you and her talked about this?
We talked last time.
What did you say, Kimberly? What are you talking about?
I said, Kimber, what are you talking about?
Right. And what did she say to you?
She told me about him touching her and all this, and I was like, what?
Touching her
Yeah.
private areas? Okay.
And I know the one person she would talk to would be Chantel Butt, and she's over in the high school.
Okay. And so you and Kimberly Yarborough had a conversation last night.
Yeah.
And was this the first time anyone's ever really said it to you? But you've had your suspicions, or what?
Yeah.
Is that correct? You never did ask Sidney if he was abusing her?
I was always scared to.
Okay. And Kimberly Yarborough, this is the first time that you heard this from anybody?
Yeah.
That he was sexually touching her? Did she go into any detail?
When she said that, I just had to hug her.
I understand. I understand that. Do you know if Kimberly's told this to anybody else?
I don't know.
Okay. Is there anything else you can think that might help us locate this girl? Did she ever say where her stepdad took her, any certain place they would go or visit?
I know one time she told me she took her driving out on the back roads.
Right. You don't know which back road?
She said something about the cemetery road, but I've been out there before driving, and I pretty much know those whole back roads. And there is some houses out there that are abandoned.
Where is Cemetery Road?
Out here by Walmart. You can go on that road, and it leads to Old Walnut Ridge Road.
Yeah.
And if you turn down that road to the left and go all the way down, and then right before you get to the white church and turn on a gravel road, you go like all the way straight, you'll find a bunch of houses that are like empty.
But they're on Cemetery Road, Old Cemetery Road?
No, I just call it the cemetery road because there's a cemetery on it.
Okay. So you go down Cemetery Road and you go to Walnut Ridge Road?
The Old Walnut Ridge Road.
Old Walnut Ridge Road? So actually you're on that road then, aren't you? You
Yeah.
turn onto it?
Yeah, and then you go to the church in there. I don't know what the name of it is. And
You turn left?
Yeah. And then like there's a church there. Before you get to the church, there's a gravel road. But like if you stop in the road, you see the church and you're right beside the gravel road. If you turn right, and you can go down that road and you can just see houses on each side.
Okay. But as far as what Sidney ever told you directly was about him standing over in the middle of the night, she'd wake up. She never did. Did you say a minute ago she confided in you that he touched her, or was that?
That was Kimber.
That was Kimber. Okay. All right. But you had suspicions.
Yeah, because he just kind of put it off like that. I mean, he gave me the creeps.
Yeah.
A lot.
Right. Okay. I ain't got anything else. We started talking about 10 minutes after 10, and it's 10:25 right now. So if you ain't got anything else, I'm going to end the interview.
I don't have anything.
I appreciate you coming in, okay?
You're welcome.
All right.
They ran a forensic scan on John's computer, and located on the hard drive was 59 adult erotic images, one age-difficult image, 65,523 never-been-seen-before images. I'm not sure what that is, but it doesn't sound good. 3,129 marked as evidence of child pornography. Evidence Finder was also ran and located 509 URLs in the browser history, including 24 classified ads, 80 dating sites, and 3,867 Internet Explorers in private mode. What they found on his computer did not make the situation any better. They went back to the Cornell's home and questioned Ben and Denise again. Ben told the police that he read a note that was found in Sidney's room that said something like, "This may be the last letter I write." He said it was obvious that John favored Sidney over the boys. He said he suspected that John was sexually abusing Sidney because it was weird that John would go into her room every night and shut the door. Entering the 8th week of the search for Sidney, John's sister was here from Australia to help with the search and help handle the media. The family wanted to say how thankful they were for the local authorities and every person who has helped in the search, and urge everyone to continue searching for Sidney. The last time that Leah, John's sister, spoke with him was 4 months prior to his suicide. She compared their relationship as brother and sister to twins. She said that they were very close. She did not believe it was a suicide and thinks something suspicious happened, even though by this time, the medical examiner's report confirmed that John's cause of death was a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head, suicide. Her reasoning was because he never gave any indication that anything was wrong. Not everyone announces their pain and suicidal thoughts, and sometimes it occurs when the person feels their life is over, and I'm sure John knew where he was heading. She also expressed her disbelief that John was sexually abusing Sidney. She said that there was no proof, but there was proof. I just don't know if she was in denial or if the evidence had not been released yet to the family. Leah said her brother was never a sex offender, so the allegations of sexual abuse are ridiculous. He would never do anything like that to his stepchild, and she was determined to clear his name. Leah said, quote, "He thought the world of her," end quote. She went on to talk about the hurt the family's going through and how close she was to Sidney. They would spend hours on the phone talking about makeup and clothes. She said she believed wholeheartedly that Sidney was alive and wanted the two families to work together to bring her home. Some people stay in denial. She mentioned that her parents drove to Missouri to hand out flyers. When asked why in Missouri, she said that they spoke with Sidney's brother Ben, who said that on March 16th he received a message from a friend that told him Sidney was heading to St. Louis and she was 100% willing. The conversation that Ben had was posted as a video online and showed texts and dates, but was soon removed. It was very shady. John's father was asked where he thinks she is, and he said he thought she was in a small town outside of St. Louis on Highway US 67 or I-55, south of St. Louis, maybe staying with relatives. The dates show that the conversation would have taken place on March 16th, and soon they'll realize that that would be impossible. After John's suicide, Denise made statements alleging that John sexually abused Sidney. She made the statements publicly. His family was hurt by the statements and wondered why the accusations had not come to light until then. I also wonder this. Prior to her knowing about his suicide, she claimed he was a good father figure to her and looked out for their well-being. I wonder if she thought nothing was wrong with him and that he would come home, and almost like she didn't want to have to deal with any of that. The medical examiner's report listed his cause of death as suicide, a self-inflicted gunshot wound. They also found Sidney's DNA on his body, including his penis. This confirms, with DNA evidence, that John Cornell was sexually abusing his stepdaughter Sidney. Even if it was only that one time, but the signs were there, and we may never find out how long it went on. Because on May 18th, 2013, the entire community of Walnut Ridge, and possibly the entire state, would receive heartbreaking news. May 19th, 2013, would have marked 10 weeks that Sidney had been missing. But the day before, a fisherman and his family would come across something that was out of the ordinary while fishing on the Black River. They were out on their boat checking on some of their drop lines when they saw what looked like a mannequin tangled in the trees on the river. As they moved in closer to the object, the fisherman realized that this was in fact a body. He stopped the boat and sends the family minus his adult son off to contact authorities. He and his son moved closer to the body to get a better look. It looked like a body of a young female. The body was entangled in the trees near Old Davison Lane Park. They did not touch it or move it, but headed right back to where the family was to wait for authorities. Once the police arrived and removed the body, they contacted the state medical examiner and let them know that they have found a deceased, unrecognizable body of a young female. The examiner contacted Sidney's dentist and asked for her dental records. Of course, they obliged and sent them over. Sidney's family was then contacted, and they told them that they found a body and it's possible that it might be Sidney. I can't even imagine the pain and the anxiety or the fear, the heartbreak that this family went through waiting for those results, after waiting 10 weeks just to hear something. Not long after, the examiner would confirm the worst. The body found was that of 14-year-old Sidney Nicole Randall, a beautiful young lady that was taken from this world way too soon. Sidney's cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. She had multiple skull fractures, but the examiner could not determine if she was alive when placed in the water. They also found John's DNA on her body. Between the evidence found on both John and Sidney's bodies, it was determined that sexual abuse was involved. There was no other suspects in this case. This was an open and shut case. There is a great book that was written by George Jared called The Creekside Bones. He knew Sidney personally. His wife taught her in school and his daughter played softball with her. He was able to get a hold of the autopsy report for John that did not have redacted information, like the one I received. He did confirm that the DNA evidence from Sidney was found on John's penis. He also covers a few other cases in the book. George was also featured on True Murder podcast, where he mentions his theory of what happened. His personal opinion is that it's possible John had hurt Sidney while raping her, freaked out, and killed her, because she was raped right before she was killed. Once the news broke, it seemed like people started to speak up about the sexual abuse. Victor, her father, was quoted saying, "She told one of her friends that John slugged her in the mouth. She was scared of him. She was going to tell. I don't want to speculate that her friends and family had any idea of what John was doing to Sidney. Abuse is hard to see and hard to report, especially if Denise was also being abused. Of course, she would be frightened to tell anyone anything. I was not in their shoes, and I hopefully never will be. I can only make an opinion off the case report that I received from Arkansas State Police and off the media that I've read and seen. So I feel like Sidney was probably abused for a while, maybe a year or so. Something tragic happened during the late hours of March 9th, 2013. But the only people who know exactly what happened are John and Sidney, which means we may never get the whole truth. What we can do, though, is take what we have learned from incidents and try to be more alert when we come across signs of sexual abuse. 1 in every 10 children will experience sexual abuse before their 18th birthday. That is scary. 30% of children sexually abused are abused by family members, and the chances are always higher for children with divorced parents. It's all so sad, especially because the statistics aren't accurate due to so many assaults not being reported. Strangers aren't the only ones who groom their victims. Family members, step-parents, older siblings, anyone can groom their victim. It's not always a guarantee that the abuse will be stopped if someone speaks up. Often there are situations when the reports are ignored. But if one person would have spoke up, it's possible the death of Sidney could have been prevented. I am not victim blaming or putting the blame on anyone, but the case files and articles I read had some mention of people suspecting that there was abuse. Why wasn't anything done? I just hope that by telling others about this case and they're in this situation, they'll speak up. If you or someone you know is suffering from any type of abuse, speak up, reach out. There are people who care that don't even know you. There are so many organizations that you can contact if you do not feel safe telling a relative. The following hotlines are important numbers to have. The National Sexual Assault Hotline, 1-800-656-4673. The National Domestic Abuse Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. The National Child Abuse Hotline, 1-800-4A-CHILD, or 1-800-422-4453, and the National Suicide Hotline, 1-800-273-8255. Never forget that you matter. All right, y'all. That's it for episode 28. It ended up being such a heartbreaking case. Very hard to research and write, but an important case to get out. Thank you again for sticking it out with me and coming back to download an episode. We will be finishing off the Rush Execution series next with the last 2 inmates of the Arkansas 8, Kenneth Williams and Jason McGehee. I'm looking forward to a new year full of amazing episodes, and I wouldn't be able to pull it off without listeners like you. Don't forget that you can always send in case recommendations. Eventually, I'll get to them all. Stay tuned to hear a few promos from some of my favorite shows. Strictly Homicide is written, hosted, and produced by me, Nikki T. The original music is done by Mr. T. No, not that one. My Mr. T.
If you are a fan of the show, please make sure you are subscribed on iTunes and please rate and review the show. You can also find us on Patreon where you can support the show for as little as $1 a month.
If there is a case that you would like to discuss, or if you have any comments, corrections, or suggestions, send us an email at strictlyhomicide@yahoo.com or on social media. You can find us on most social media sites by searching Strictly Homicide Podcast and on Twitter as @StrictlyHMICIDE. That's Strictly Homicide with no O. You can also visit our website, strictlyhomicide.com. Stick around to hear a few promos from some of the best podcasts around, and until next time, y'all stay safe, especially you, Arkansas.
Hey guys, I'm Brandy, and my husband Douglas and I host That Dead Body Show.
We talk about dead bodies, murder, the victims, and those that just play the victim.
All with the sarcastic, foul-mouthed, dark humor that you'll come to love us for. Or not. Even if we talk over each other sometimes.
Jinx. Download us with your favorite podcatcher, and find us on all social media at That Dead Body Show.
My name is Hunter, and I welcome you to Murder and Such, a podcast about murders, the macabre, true crime, serial killers, and other dark subject matter. Join me for the first 50 episodes where my co-hosts and I discuss some of the most well-known cases and some you've probably never heard of. Or join me after episode 51 for a much more serious approach to true crime. You can find Murder and Such on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and all of your podcatcher services. You can also find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Murder and Such. I hope to hear from you soon.